Welcome to Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jessie Ott, the host of this podcast, which is all about beverage innovation. I talk with innovation pioneers from agriculture to glass.
Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe to be notified of all new episodes.
Welcome to Special Edition Roundtable Discussion 2024 and 2025 Review, Part 2. I hope you enjoy it as much as we did record it. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thursdays. I am Jessie Ott, and I have a special panel this year. And I can't wait to introduce you all, or have you actually introduce yourselves to all of us. And I don't believe we know each other as a group until now. And so that's pretty exciting to get different people from different parts of the industry together to talk about, an industry we're passionate about and love, and see it transition beyond, I think, what I ever thought we would be. Just to be honest, there's some surprises for me for 2024. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Julie. Julie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Julie Milroy. I am a global wine and spirits U.S. distribution strategist, formerly with Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. I was an executive there for 15 years. And now I am in transition, but also working on my consultant agency, JM Advisory.
Okay, Caitlyn?
So, Caitlyn LuBell, I'm in New York. I am one of the founders of Booze Biz, which is a recruiting agency for the booze industry. So we focus throughout the U.S., all types of roles, and we're kind of the matchmaker for candidates, jobs, great clients filling great roles. And our whole team is all from the industry. So we all have industry backgrounds. So.
Kate?
Good morning, everyone. Kate Jerkens. I'm the Chief Business Officer for Uncle Nearest Premium Whiskey. And I just celebrated my 8-year anniversary. I actually was the first employee to come on with Fawn, our founder. And this was actually my first foray into the spirits world. And boy, did I choose a time.
Yeah. Really?
Nice to meet everyone.
Definitely. Yeah, I can't wait, Kate. I can't wait to hear more. Erica.
Yeah, Erica Duecy. And I have to say, Kate, we just had Fawn Weaver, everyone knows, from Uncle Nearest on the Business of Drinks podcast, which I run.
Oh,
and
right.
So far, it's one of our most listened to episodes of all time because this company is just making waves.
Amazing.
So a little bit about me. I've been leading teams in content, data, tech, both drink side and non for about the last 20 years. So I've held director level roles at big publishing brands like Architectural Digest and Sephora Magazine, and then editor-in-chief and chief content officer roles for drinks publications and platforms on both the trade and consumer side. So 750 Daily, Pix, Vine, Pair. And in the past few years, I've been working as a strategic consultant, building both marketing and data and insights programs for companies like Drizzly, Union. I do a lot of market research. So I, for example, am just finishing up a big study that I did for the New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, where we're looking at different generational cohorts and how to market to each of those generations. And I share a lot of my insights on the Business of Drinks podcast. And that's the format of that podcast is we track trends and we interview the most innovative people in the drink space, which is why Fawn was on, and talk to them about how they've built their brands. So I'm excited to be here with everyone today.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, all right, let's get started. So before we shift off to surprises, I do want to talk about one thing that we haven't talked about that I feel is a major shift in our industry. And it's been happening for a few years, and that's this shift from I know the wine industry kind of started it, going from a traditional wine and spirits distributor to a beer distributor.
And wasn't it Treasury that did it like 5 or 6 years ago? I don't know if they're still doing it or how good it worked out. But then I know, Erica, you had Beatbox.
Beatbox, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's their success story.
Right.
Shifting into the to the beer networks,
Mm-hmm.
Being a wine-based product. And then now we're seeing it with sake, because it's a brew, right? It's actually technically a brewed product. But most people kind of view it probably more like a wine. So do you guys have any input or is anybody talking about that in your circles about what's happening?
Yeah, in my circles, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think after we did the Beatbox episode, which for people who are unfamiliar with that, it's a party punch in a resealable little carton, RTDs format. It's a wine-based product, and they were on Shark Tank, probably about a decade ago. But they really tried to grow through traditional wine and spirits distribution, and then realizing like that RTDs were starting to explode, and really the usage occasion being more like convenience stores. That's where they said like, okay, look, maybe it's going to make sense for us to move up. It was actually their distributor. From one of the big distributors who said, like, we've helped foster you as far as we can, and now you need to shift over to beer distribution because you mostly are going to be picked up in convenience stores, right. Safeways and all those sorts of things. So it was like hockey stick type growth. But since that episode aired, I've had so many RTD founders tell me that they were either already talking to beer distributors to go that route, or that this kind of gave them a new idea and that they were starting to pursue that route. So I think we're kind of moving into what I like to call, a post-base world. We always have we have a great contributor, Brian Roth, who every year I have him on for a trends episode. Last year for 2024, we said we were moving into the post alcohol base. So like no consumers care what the alcohol base is like anymore. They don't consider themselves wine drinkers or beer drinkers. And now this year we just recorded another one of these episodes, and like we've moved past the post-base world. So like I think that was another thing that we saw in 1 year. But that idea of more thinking about the occasions and venues in which these things will be served. It's less about the traditional categories and more about the end consumer and that route to market, making it as like quickly and direct as possible. So for a lot of brands, I think really beer distribution does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I think you brought up a big, a big topic there, RTD, ready to drink, right? Something that's been, kind of jumping in and definitely stealing a lot of share. And it does make sense because it really took a lot of share from beer, right? I mean, you go into the grocery stores and I'd be like, why can't they stack our wine like that? Just like boxes and boxes of Corona before you get to Michelob. And the RTDs that came in and really took a lot of that share. I think a Constellation that's always had a beer arm. And then even Gallo, right? With like between High Noon, I can't even keep up with all the different ones, but I think we'll continue seeing the beer industry merge in RTD. And then to your point, Jesse, around, and then if we think of like the younger consumers and what they're drinking, right? Like back when, I was, LDA, legal drinking age, right? It was all about like Boone's Farm and, Strawberry Hill,
Bartles and James,
right?
wine coolers.
Yeah. Wine coolers and stuff like that. Now it's just straight RTDs. I mean, people love it, and like you said, Erica, it doesn't matter what the base is, like whether it's malt, tequila, whatever, they want it and it's easy to drink and they can have multiple cans and it's all good. When we think about sake, Jesse, and I actually did a level 3 wine set certification on sake. Don't ask me how I even passed that because I probably couldn't answer anything else.
Isn't it amazing though how much we don't know about sake?
Well, what I did learn, the one thing is that it is closer to a beer than a wine, right? Because it is brewed and it has a shelf life, and
Yes.
it requires temperature control more so than wine. So as we were going through this whole class and we were tasting all these sakes from our warehouse, and we had this like, you know, instructors from Japan, they were like, these are all bad. These are all bad. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like that's what we just pulled out of our warehouse. And that was a reason why mostly, even with Southern Glazers, we got away from beer because of the temperature control nature. I mean, it's, you've got to have the trucks, you got to go back and things expire and whatnot.
Yeah.
And with sake, it's very much the same. So it does make sense that like RTDs and sake align with the beer industry. And I think the beer industry, when we talk about like everybody feeling the pain, I think the beer industry has probably felt it more if they're not, if they don't have a parallel with RTDs in the last few years. So it's natural. I just don't know that like the traditional wine and spirits would fit in that, even though I'm always one that appreciated the beer industry and their marketing tactics, especially with consumer events and promotions. I think the wine industry could learn a lot from how the beer industry goes to market and really adds a lot of value with promotions and consumer tastings.
Well, one of the challenges in the past was that they didn't necessarily, the salespeople from the distributor, again, no disrespect to the distributors, but they didn't have the expertise, right? So the beer people didn't really know how to sell wine, or they didn't have the knowledge to sell spirits. Even in wine and spirits, when, Southern used to have a wine division, a spirits division. And I remember when they created the Pearl division, the Sapphire division, it was like trying to get the spirits people to now sell wine. It was a challenge because they just wanted to sell their spirit. Yeah, I'm a spirits guy or whatever. But now again, with the evolution of, you kind of have to hire your own people, then maybe that doesn't matter as much, right? And I think there has been a crossover with spirits in particular, like well spirits and things like that have moved to the beer side as well. So it does make a lot of sense for especially RTDs and sakes, sure, but you got to have your own salespeople anyway. So it's okay.
And then you consider the licensing component, right?
Yeah.
It's one to have a low alc, a beer wine license versus a spirit license. So,
and it depends on every market, because it doesn't make, like to your point, doesn't make sense in every market, because there's, some stores that only allow you to sell beer and wine and don't allow you to sell spirits. And so working with those guys, and, I think it's really important to know the routes that these beer guys have and what their guys are doing. And and it's no disrespect to anyone, but if you're trying to grow your business in the on-premise and you're, not a well product, it's not going to be a great fit, because they just don't have they don't have the time for that either. It really just becomes time, and they're selling huge volume, and the beer, it's pretty straightforward in a lot of places. I guess it would depend if maybe you're working with like a more craft distributor or something like that, where there's a lot more hand selling of things. But we've done some of both, and major brands like a major Sazerac, they changed their whole model, and they're doing a lot with beer as well. But they're putting a lot, they did some great negotiating, had different types of contracts with them, and then brought in more salespeople. So it'll be interesting and fun to watch what happens over time for them, because that's a pretty major brand with pretty major spirits.
Yeah,
to see how that works as well.
There's one of my customers is trying to get into Texas, and he's looking at a typical regular distributor. I don't remember the names, and then a beer distributor. In fact, the beer distributor is going after them really aggressively and are really excited about building out this craft kind of spirit division. And so I'm wondering if they're seeing the writing on the wall where there's a problem. We've got the people and our beer sales are down. So let's
Mhm.
get a higher ring and let's get out there. We're in the
Sure.
stores, so why not
Smart.
throw a couple bottles in, and see what happens. So I'll be interested also to see kind of how that comes into play in Texas
You
next
can
year.
have some success with a couple big brands. Like,
Yeah.
that will change the model.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got some opportunity for some of these smaller brands that are coming. That's maybe who literally just need someone to distribute them and drop the product off, right?
Well,
And the margins are so much higher with spirits, right? So we're seeing even from traditional wine suppliers, right? Like Foley Family Wine. And Bill Foley just recently got heavy into spirits because, when you consider wine, not only is the category challenged, the influx of competition and options is that it's an agricultural product. It's what we would always hear. It's
It
an
is.
agricultural product. So if you have a bad vintage, you don't have enough.
Mhm.
And it's where spirits is pretty straightforward and the margins are so high. So they've really been ramping up the spirit side of the business and launching new spirits. And it makes sense that, whatever losses, that you would have with wine or beer could easily be made up with spirits.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of that. Like it's not. I think you look at Gallo and like their number one, growth product being High Noon, and then the trajectory of that has led to things like John Anthony. They recently shifted from John Anthony Family of Wines to John Anthony Wine and Spirits. They're like makers of Jam Cellars, the Butter Chardonnay. And like they're now
I'm a big supporter of Butter Chardonnay, just for the record,
Yeah.
everybody. So.
One of my best friends works for them, and
great.
she's like, they're so much fun. Like they do Bottle Rock, like that's their meeting.
Oh, they have the best concerts, best events.
They have the best time.
Bottle Rock.
Yeah, I mean,
if you like a good buttery everyday shark to it, really gets the job done. So they've done a great job.
It does. But I think we see, and like, and Jackson family's now doing a bourbon so I think like this kind of growth and expansion of portfolios, it just makes so much sense to diversify if you're a portfolio.
Sure.
But to your point, Kate, bringing in the fun, I think like the brands that are really finding success are doing a great job of reaching out to new consumers in a way that feels fun. So I think, like I love, like La Crema with they're doing so many of these. I think they did, something like 90 different activations last year of like popping up at like farmers markets and pride festivals and like all these sorts of places where they're like, how can we bring in multicultural consumers who have been undermarketed to bring them into this brand fold, but in a way that feels like fun and casual. So I think like these sorts of like experiential activations for whatever makes sense for the brand, for Aveline, maybe it's like a wellness pop-up for, for some brands, it's like the Bottle Rocks, like those type of activations and like making it more about the experience and like the lifestyle experience as opposed to just like a product seems to be also just resonating a lot in the current market.
Well, you look at High Noon, like, so when I toured some distributor warehouses this year, and some of our big distributors High Noon has been a game changer for them. It equaled growth versus negative growth if you take High Noon out of it for them. And they High Noon did a big partnership with Barstool Sports, and that's where there was just this huge lift. And that's a fun brand. It's a fun CEO, and they do a lot of fun stuff, and they're completely talking to the target demographic of High Noon, and that growth has been, that's like, it's another level of growth, truly, what High Noon has done. And they've completely changed that whole segment.
Yeah, 100%.
I see Uncle Nearest doing a lot of fun things,
Yeah,
by the
we're
way.
really fun too.
When I travel around for events, and I always see Uncle Nearest and have great build outs and just doing fun things and getting the crowd to come over. I really do. I'm always like, oh, look at them doing it again.
That's money well spent, right? It's just, look, we spend a lot of time with our distributors, but we've got our story is so important. And I think that's the other piece is the more consumer facing events you do, and they don't have to be over the top. You don't have to have huge build outs. But it is intimidating for smaller companies as you come on board and you go to some of those consumer events, and that's where the big brands and that money, and it's like, okay, everyone's going over to this giant platform they've set up, and there's girls, right? And like all the things. I mean, I did a podcast on this once of like my first time at WSWA in Vegas, and just how much money is put into like women with shots and things, and like just like there's just so much like glitz, glamour, sex that they're using to sell everything. And I think when you're an incoming brand, that's pretty intimidating as well, because you just don't have the means. Nor for me, that's not my flavor at all. But there's just a lot of it's consumer facing events are interesting. You got to find your niche and your way to like sort of stand out when you don't have all of that.
Yes, agreed.
So I think we can shift to maybe surprises. I know we've kind of brushed on a few. I can give mine, or if somebody else wants to kind of start. I feel like I kind of started last time. Does anybody want to start?
I think one of the surprises for me, obviously having a fairly new company and being on the backside of things now, is, well, two big ones. One is that people are really open-minded to be innovative about their hiring, which is really cool. I think everybody kind of gets that we're in a little bit of a broken system here, and how can we all bond together to make things better. But also, it's kind of on the negative, and I don't mean to be negative. I'm always very positive. But if you ask people in companies what's their number one most important thing, they'll always say their people. And then our next question is, great, so what's your hiring process look like? And they're like, that's a good question. I'm not sure how that's going to go. And unfortunately, and it's important to be said, because creating a good hiring experience is all part of getting the best team and getting the best people on board. And it's been surprising to see that that's not a focus, even with very large companies. And I remember how long it took me to get my job at St. Michel Wine Estates. Love them, but it took me a really long time, and they almost lost me multiple times because of it. So, but then seeing it on this side, it's like, okay, you really have to focus. If you're going to say the people are the most important thing, invest in your people, and that's paying people well, having a proper hiring process, having a good, strong onboarding process. And because this is really important to have your own people. We're not relying on the distributor anymore as much. And so I think, it is surprising to see that not enough focus on that. And I think we're working and talking hard about trying to help fix that. And yeah, it's just something that we've kind of noticed. But also, people are very innovative and open-minded. So if we're like, hey, you really need to have a good system and make this a priority and make this important, they're like, oh, actually, you're right. And we say, okay, maybe you don't have the money to hire 5 different people in 5 different states. Let's talk about getting fractional salespeople and sharing them with other brands, and it'll be more cost effective. Oh, that's a good idea. Let's talk about that. So I think, it's kind of on both sides. I'm surprised to see kind of the misses, but then also excited, positively surprised to see people being open-minded and be like, tell us more about that. Let's talk about that. This could be a better path, right?
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all that I don't think most companies have a very good onboarding flow and process. I think people get busy. It's hard to interview. They know they need to make time, but it's hard,
It's so important. It's so important.
It's so important.
It's so important to have the right team. There's so many great candidates out there right now, and great people, passive and active, that, but you got to treat them right, because they're picky too. They're interviewing you as well, right? And so you want to get the best of the best. You got to be pretty buttoned up and, have a good path.
Sure.
I don't know. That was a little off the beaten path of what we've talked about, but for me, it's what I'm seeing.
I think that's interesting. I think it's important to be noted because, like, I don't know how many times all 5 of us have said how important it is to have the right people and the right teams and the right goals and all the right things. So that needs to be a focus for 25 for sure. If they want to see the growth and they want to get their goals, then that's I would start there.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And anyone else?
I mean, I'll add to that. I think, and it's not a surprise for me, but I think a surprise for many is that, one, everybody is so focused on, the youth, they're not drinking wine, they're not drinking, they're drinking less. And I think the big opportunity is HNW, high net worth woman, and executive woman. And I mean, I think of my network with women that have disposable income and they make really good money. And a lot of them, have chosen, not to have kids or to be single and have their cats that don't cost as much. But they've got, they have incredible palates, and my friends are always wanting to learn, and I feel like they're the ones that are willing to buy that expensive bottle of champagne or that super premium tequila and whatnot.
That experience.
And I think like we and wine and spirit suppliers need to market to women and not continue the same old playbook of marketing to men. They're not the only ones that are buying. And if you think of household, right? I mean, a lot of the women are the ones that are picking the wines, and it's not like
buying. Yeah, 100%.
and buying, right? And choosing. And it's not about like, okay, we got to make it whimsical and, and have a girl in the commercial. It's really about speaking to women and treating them as the earner, right? The head of household, the high income consumer. And one thing that I wanted to do, is like a project in the back of my head, was like really teaching my friends like the world of collecting wine and how to invest in wine or whiskeys and whatnot, and I think that nobody's speaking to them, right? So they're learning about a great product and they're drinking it, but what about that next level, and when you look at Wine Spectator and all these things, they're still talking to the same. And I think that that's a huge opportunity, is, high net worth woman. And then the digital piece, right, is using digital transformation and social media. And, I mean, you'd be shocked how many even brands that have been around forever don't even have the right digital content, right? Like so basic. When we think about distributors now, I know Southern Glazer's, like they have a B2, we have, they B2C commerce platform, right? So maybe not every salesperson can get into that account, but I guarantee that account and those buyers are in the middle of the night looking and seeing what else is available, and having your content updated, like that's free. I mean, it's not free to get the content, but to have all of that available. A lot of these big retailers won't even feature your product on their site if you don't have the correct content.
Yeah.
So I think these are a couple surprises for a lot of people in the industry that they need to maybe like double down on and take seriously as we go into 2025.
I love that. That's super, super interesting. And I don't think about it. You're absolutely right. I think that the wine industry is going to have to do something, right? I mean, the ebb and flow of the percentages of beer and spirits and wine is gonna continue to do so. But I do think that there's going to be an evolution of wine. And one of the graphs that I saw actually saw RTD wines growing really, really big into the 2030s, and that kind of surprised me. Yeah, thank you for that, Julie. That was very insightful.
I would say for 2024, I think my biggest surprise is how surprised we were.
like meaning that there wasn't a lot of forecasting coming and on how this year has turned out. It's all sort of happened in the moment, and I'm not completely sure that everybody has the forecast right still going into 2025. So I think the surprise is the surprise. And I think the other thing for me is I'm noticing, I don't know about y'all, but I buy a lot like from people serving me the proper ads on Instagram. Like I'm easily influenced. And I don't think that alcohol companies yet have done back to your to your targeting. Like I think maybe this is a stereotype, but I think women in particular like to buy pretty instantaneously and like things at their fingertips. And I don't think we've mastered as an industry how to do that very well
100%.
on social media.
Well, it's still so new to our world, right? Because, I mean, e-com for us is only a few years before the pandemic is when it started, and people were just getting their footing, and then all of a sudden the pandemic hit, and it was like, okay, because the whole DTC and all the laws and logistics. So I think our industry is still really learning it. There's still companies that are not quite sure what to do with e-com. So that's a hard one because it's like, you want to be able to see the Instagram, click on it and buy, and like companies are like, I don't get there yet, or I don't have the money to get there yet, or and so
But what an easy opportunity.
Oh,
it is
for sure.
And inexpensive too.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the big concerns, I've talked to some of the bigger brands about this, one of the big concerns is around compliance. So I think that's like
dating and everything.
Exactly. And like, I was talking to a brand that was telling me like their accounts got canceled because they didn't have it set at 25. They had it set at 23. Right. And so there's like all these sorts of rules that you have to know. And even if you're a big brand, you still are having to negotiate these things. So I think like those sort of like modified DTC where you're going through a third party platform, like a Reserve Bar sort of thing, is like a way around that. But it does seem like a lot of brands are still trying to figure that out right now.
Still trying to figure it out, without a doubt. We don't get e-com and digital roles a lot at all. And
which is interesting.
I have so many candidates that do it, and nobody's asking us to hire for it. And I'm like, and we work with small to medium-sized companies, and I'm like, what are they doing? Like, I guess they're outsourcing, and sometimes we ask them, but it's mind-blowing to me. I thought this year we'd be filling so many digital roles, and not at all. Not at all. It's honestly, it's like, okay, is the bubble not here yet? I don't know. Right. I don't know what to even tell these candidates, because I'm like, we don't really get these roles. Check the big companies. Maybe they're hiring for them. So I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, are they just not there yet?
Yeah.
I mean, from experience, I think that, when we think of even, Southern Glazers, a lot of the digital team from outside of the industry, because you didn't have a lot of seasoned industry experts that are digital. So a lot of my colleagues that all come from different e-commerce, Instacart, but Instacart and all these things, like they all, they came from other industries, and you can see them in the office. They all look different. They've got their skinny jeans and like, they're just not your typical
cooler than people about what's going on.
But what I've found challenging as I've managed suppliers and brands that are doing really well, and we're trying to get them to that next level and to really step up, is getting them in the digital game, in the e-commerce game. And Kate, you mentioned, being able to, I'm like that too. I'm such a sucker for, if I see something good, I'm going to buy it right now. And the easier it is, the more likely I'm going to buy it. There are tactics and these different platforms, digital platforms, that can do that. But it's the education that is hard, and it's difficult within our industry because we're so behind when it comes to that digital transformation. And a lot of it is because of our laws, because of our 3-tier system and all this stuff. But I think for any brand, really digging into it, because those resources are there. And the quicker you get on board with that and start leveraging it, especially with the big distributors, they have those resources available. You just have to be uncomfortable and want to learn it. And I see the pushback with a lot of, like, everybody just wants to continue doing marketing and that not really wanting to explore digital marketing because it's so overwhelming how many different platforms and tools there are, but really leaning on experts that know. And some of these distributors have in-house digital experts that are available to you to learn. So maybe taking it like one tiny step at a time. But I think that is like the near future in order to differentiate yourself.
Yeah, I just interviewed a gentleman. He's a veteran, Eric Martindale with the Elite Commerce Group. And he talked about not so much on Instagram, but in Instacart. Like if you have an item in Whole Foods or, wherever online platform it is, he has a way to get to 30% of those people that are buying that instantly, right? And he has all those tactics. And I didn't even think about that as being a part of our industry or part of a tactic to keep your product, getting the volume turns that it needs in order to stay on the shelf. And so I think, that's another real big opportunity for brands in 2025. There's people that know this.
Yeah, there are. We have great people that know this stuff and then can build it out from the ground up. And they just the brands have to be open to investing the money to do so. And then that's really it, right? Invest what it costs to hire the right person to build it out for you. And
but distributors are also getting on board. We partner with RNDC in over 30 states, and they have a big e-commerce team, and they've guided us in some stuff too, like things we were doing, and they've enhanced it. And so I think distributors becoming experts in this really behooves them. It makes them great partners. And a perfect example the other day, I had another sit kit at home. Have you guys seen the pattern? And I'm ordering the Sprites and all the things. And I go to close my Instacart, and it was from Bristol Farms here in LA. And it sent me a sponsored message, have you forgotten something? And it was Uncle Work 1884, and it was like, oh, I was literally like beaming with pride.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a great, because not because I wanted to buy whiskey at that moment, but the people that know our brand, if they see that and they're like, oh, it's that easy, they're already delivering it. Why not? Like, that's a great tool for a quick, easy pull for somebody who's not walking into the grocery store. So having expertise on your team or with your distributors or both is huge, because those are just easy moments to just to toss something in your cart, get it compliant, and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that's smart. Definitely.
I think a lot of brands recognize the need for it and want to do it, are excited about it. They just don't either have the funding to invest in it, or they don't know where to start, kind of thing. So, but I think they get it. They're like, I need to get better at this. It's just not quite
I
sure.
give a brand a tip. When you look at any kind of consumer product good, about in today's world and our digital world, up to about 30% of your marketing dollars should be allocated to digital and digital marketing. And, the bigger brands like Constellation, they've been doing this way early. And, everybody wants to know, like, why is Josh Cellars and Oyster Bay, like, the numbers are crazy, the distribution's crazy. It's because of their investment into the digital platform. And I think, like, to your point, Caitlyn, like, everybody wants to do it. They know they should do it, but they're we don't have the money for it, because they're thinking like, well, we already have our marketing budget. We need more money to do digital. No, you need to take what you have and try different things. And, as you plan, hopefully everybody has their plan set up.
Well, some of them don't even have our marketing budget yet, because
they don't have a marketing budget.
Yeah,
we need to go back out and raise some money.
We do talk to a lot of startups. So, they don't even, they're talking sales, and But they do know they want to do it, and that's a good point. I'll definitely use that of like
Yeah,
you should
and
be
just even
allocating 30% of your
when you
marketing
think of
budget.
21 Seeds, right? I mean, that brand is incredible, and they were, I think, sold to Diageo, right? But
Yeah,
her whole marketing, everything was like not print magazine because that costs a fortune. Everything was about how do I take digital and social and get my brand out there and get her out there, right? And like,
that's
and
it.
it was huge success. So like reading that kind of case study and seeing how they did it from a brand new
Sure.
brand, no connections, no big suppliers, her own personal story, really starting digital first, and then now, you know, being a household brand it's an incredible story.
Yeah, time check here. We got about 12 minutes. Unless you all want to stay a little longer, it's up to you. I just am kind of surprised at the success of the low and no. Everybody was talking about it, but I think it's part of our culture now. It's not just a section or a few people over here or whatever. It's every day, right? Like when I talk to the owners of Athletic Brewing, they're like, yeah, 30% of our customers or consumers, they'll actually trade off beer for non-alcoholic beer and whatnot. And so I think that's interesting for me. I think it's bigger than I thought it would be. The second thing, the CBD THC is really, really a surprise for me, the acceptance and then their success. So I don't know if you guys have ever listened to the podcast On and Off with Melissa Dowling, editor of Cheers, and Kyle Swartz, editor of Beverage Dynamic magazine. But Kyle goes through every fall. I think he said he takes a different selection of the country and he travels like to 3 states. He gets in a car and he sets up 13 or 15 appointments. And he said the shocking thing, it wasn't so much shocking, but like telling, was every retailer he went to, the CBD and THC drinks were flying off the shelves. People were coming and buying, like, I don't know, he said a cart full. Like this guy was kind of dressed up and, you know, like a businessman, got 7 cases or, you know, boxes of like this CBD stuff and put it in his cart. And so that's kind of surprising for me that
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a substantial change. Yeah,
it's growing, and it's growing a lot faster, certainly than I expected. I had a live happy hour earlier in the year with experts on it, talking about it. And so I think that's part of the wellness piece too, which I think is good. I really kind of thought RTDs would slow down, not including the cannabis stuff, you know. I didn't expect it to continue to keep going with all the new brands. There's constant innovation in this space, and I really thought it would flatten out, and I don't think that's happening. And so that was kind of a surprise for me. So as far as 2024, my last podcast, last year on my last roundtable, I had summarized what I thought would be in 2024 as community. I was seeing people on X saying, "Hey, if you're interested in these 5 topics, ping me." You know, I felt like there was more of this sense of community and belonging and finding your interests in certain things, and becoming a part of that community. And I've talked to different people on the podcast that are, you know, restaurant entrepreneurs, and they're saying that, yeah, it's all about, you know, building the local concept now. You know, it's like your neighborhood bar around the corner, that kind of thing. And so I think that was the case. And I think that will continue as, you know, these brands try to connect with different consumer bases. They're going to do their trial and they're going to find that community that they want to belong in. And then the second one was experience. So I'll give you an example. Last December, my wife and I went out shopping for Christmas, and we had like a lunch or whatever, and then we decided to go to the speakeasy like just down the street, and I got a bathtub gin. Well, come to find out, it shows up really in a bathtub with a ducky and then foam on top, and we giggled and laughed for 45 minutes. It was so
cute. I love it.
fun. And so that sparked my, oh my gosh, it's experience, because I've had gin and whatever, drink cocktail experience, whatever. This just took it to a whole new level. And I think that's the kind of stuff that's going to get the attention of the younger kids. It's going to be the experience piece. They like all the things. So I think that kind of, for me, I feel like that probably is still the case, and probably into 25 as well. My surprise word is the word gummy. Because you can eat a gummy, whatever it is, medicine, whether it be vitamins, pot, like you name it. Everything's a gummy now.
People are selling boozy gummies now too, which I think is wild.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
There is living in California, I will tell you, there's zero stigma when it comes to, like, at this point, anything marijuana related, and it took a long time, but it's like people will have cans of that. Like, if you're hosting a party with wine, beer, you also have cans on it of the THC drink and the CBD drink. That's really very interesting, and that's the whole term California sober, where a lot of people maybe aren't consuming alcohol anymore, but everyone seems to think weed is just fine, which is interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. And maybe that's part of the challenge you're experiencing.
Yeah, I mean, I will say,
Maybe. Yeah, good call.
For me, 2025, I think, will be the year of functional. And by functional, that means both like THC, CBD, as well as like the adaptogen drinks,
Yeah.
So like all of these, this whole class of beverages is really formulated to give mood specific benefits, whether it's like calming or uplifting or social, through, any of a variety of things like THC, nootropics, L-theanine, like all these amino acids and so forth.
Well, I have several of them in my coffee every day.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, I think, and
mushrooms.
Exactly. Probably because we're of the age where we're getting marketed this stuff on our Instagram accounts, right?
Yeah,
exactly. You telling me I'm not going to go through perimenopause crazy?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
It's incredible to me that, like, I had the founder of CAN, CANN, the THC drinks. Like they spun up a $36 million business in 4 years, and Recess, which is another one of the mood specific.
They're great. Their marketing was awesome.
Exactly, their marketing is fantastic, and that's again
and they
like
all taste
$10
good.
million.
They taste good.
These things taste good, and they have the functional effects. So I think, like, whether or not you do feel the sort of different effects of them, or it's just like these things are infused with, green tea and all of these types of things that are good for you. For me, it feels like this CPG crossover of like everything we were drinking is like the Oli Pops and Poppies and all these better for you sodas, and now it's just crossed into alcohol.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, that for me feels like what the innovation that we're going to see in 2025 is, like more alcohol brands and non-alcohol brands embracing like functionality in their drinks.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, calorically, they all make sense, because CAN and all those Recess, they are very low calorie. I think that's a big thing for people too. There is the health function there. It's like, I can get the same benefits as a glass of wine, but it's 10 calories or whatever it is versus 140.
Totally.
Well, and my business partner Jen, she's a mom. She has 2 young kids, and so she still wants to feel like she hasn't drank, but she has been exploring a ton of booze-free options. And we recently signed our first low alc client, and they have a booze-free as well, or non-alc, or whatever you want to call it. But we're really digging into alternate beverages, because it's beverage, and it's and they want people from the industry, right? Because they want people that understand how to sell, beverages and boozy beverages, but they want to, just kind of sidestep it. But it's definitely, I think, going to continue to grow for sure.
Anyone else have a word for 25 or 24? I'll tell you my 25 is I'm with you, Erica. It was health or health focus, because I do think that's going to continue to be the trend, just as you said. And for me personally, that's going to be a focus. And then the other word is elevate, because if you're gonna be a brand with so much competition and not a lot of options through distribution, you got to elevate your game, right? You can't just be just a brand. You got to have a story. You got to have a tagline. You got to have the marketing, the digital piece, the whole components to really to make it. And so those are my two takes on 2025.
Mine's evolution for sure. Our industry is evolving a ton, whatever, all the directions that we talked about today. And if you're not ready to evolve, you're going to struggle. And you got to be open-minded. And I think evolution of our industry as a whole is going to continue.
Yep.
I know it's going to continue. And to be open-minded and be on board with evolution is going to be key for brands.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I'll just throw out
Juggling the
digital.
word.
Okay.
Digital.
Well, you
Digital.
can do a sentence if that's easier.
I think it's a new era. That's sort of like what's in my head. It just feels like we just entered a new era. There's just a lot of disruption this year. And we still don't know what's going to happen next year, because we also have the possibility of, and I'm not trying to be political, but tariffs and all sorts of things that could wreak havoc on some brands.
25% from Canada and Mexico is the current one.
That's going to change the tequila industry. So
that'll be challenging.
And then if the retaliatory tariffs continue and go back for UK and EU, for many of us that are distributing in there, that's going to be challenging. So I just, that's one piece, right? But it's a new era. It started this year, but this is where we're at with all of there's just so much newness and unknown.
Like even just the last few weeks of this year.
Sure.
So
well, and when you kind of look at it that way, Kate, too, it's like I didn't read into it or anything like that, but I saw either it was on, we're Good Morning America people, so we kind of get the overview and then we go on with our day and get local news. But I think they were saying that personal debt is at an all-time high. And then with Julie, you saying things like you're kind of feeling this year was sort of this right before the crash kind of things. I know we're not in a recession. They keep saying we are, but the indicators aren't there. But with the tariffs potentially happening and, with this momentum of maybe next year could be a challenge, and then all this consumer debt, there's going to be a crash of some kind, right? Because the last time it happened, people were over leveraged in real estate. Cash is king. Cash is king. You can put a $10 bill down and buy a $300,000 home. It was just nuts. It was crazy. So I wonder too, how does that debt impact us in our industry? Because
it's
see
already
premiumization.
impacting.
Well, it's impacting our distributors. Money is so expensive. And they have too much product on their floors, and they can't afford it. So then they can't afford to make bigger purchases. And the debt is it's affecting retail store owners. They maybe would have bought your 100 case deal last year, but this year they literally they can't. They run out of room because they bought all those case deals that are not moving as fast as they'd hoped, but they also don't have the credit for it.
Yeah.
The cost of goods, you bring up a great point, Jesse, is consumer debt, and I think at a certain point that's going to catch up, but you see it. I mean, you see people, choosing down in their wines and their spirits, buying less. I mean, I see it even with my friends, and it's almost like it's become this trend is like everybody's analyzing, their itemized receipts from when they're out at restaurants and whatnot, and nickel and dining. I'm talking my restaurateurs are like, this is been the worst year ever for them.
Same in New York.
And people are just like, I do it myself. I'm like, let's see if we can get out of here, under $100 for the two of us, and it's unfortunate because the restaurateurs, their margins are already so low that they're the first to hit it or to feel it. And, with the retailers, they're not doing big case quantity. I mean, everybody that's doing price reduction and from the distributor side, we're like, no, you cannot add case quantity. Like, you've got to do it at case 1 or like 3 cases max. I mean, even the big guys, they're not going to take hundreds of cases anymore. So I think we've started feeling it in 2024, and in 2025, where it's got it. Everything that goes up has to come down at some point. And I feel like there's just been lots of cushion, so we haven't had to come down. But eventually, the bottom's going to fall out.
Yeah. Yeah. When COVID first happened, my wife was going through breast cancer, but she was going to her occupational therapist. And so it was interesting to hear from a nurse's perspective about, COVID and how long it's going to take to get back to normal. And she's like, 2025. It's going to be 2025. And I feel like, well, we're here. It's 2025. I mean, is our supply chain better? I don't know. The prices aren't going down. So, what's going to happen? What's going to have to happen to make those prices go down? I mean, I know they're going to continue to decrease the interest rates. That will help ease some pricing. But there's got to be other things that are putting pressure on that we're going to have to see how that plays out in 2025.
For sure.
This has been fun.
Definitely.
It's so fun. It certainly exceeded even my expectations and, my excitement behind it. Does anybody have any final thing that they'd like to say to the audience, or just as a recap, or something that they haven't quite hit on yet?
I just want to thank you, because I love talking to, no disrespect to men, but other smart women in the industry. I think it's so much fun, and to learn from you guys and others daily is just so important. And the more we keep talking about the industry and the challenges and how to evolve them, I think the stronger we're all going to be together. So thank you, Jessie. I mean, this is the kind of things that we need to be doing more of, and banding together to evolve in the right direction and help each other and support each other. So thank you. I'm all about the girl power, and we're a female founded business, and I love others in the industry, men and others, but it's just really nice. So it's great to be in this space. So thank you all.
Thank you so much,
Jessie. And it's been amazing, talking with all of you and hearing your insights. So, thank you very much for that. And I think just my takeaway, that I would love to leave for the listeners is, if you want to connect or learn more, I'm on LinkedIn, and, happy to continue the conversations. Always like to put myself out there, and love, random reach outs. And, like you said, Caitlyn, we got to keep having these conversations.
Yeah. And Booze Biz, please, I mean, just shameless little plug here. We are continuing to grow and evolve, and our team is growing, and we just love helping the industry and helping people. And so please feel free to follow Booze Biz on LinkedIn and reach out to us if you're hiring or looking for an opportunity. Like, we're here to help everybody. So, and we love ideas too. So any outside the box thinking, we want to hear about it. So
definitely. And if you aren't following or listening to Business of Drinks, please do. And for everyone here, I will be following you on LinkedIn right now if we're not already connected.
Yes.
Yeah, no, your podcast is great, Erica. It really is.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yep.
Appreciate it. It was nice to meet everybody, and women keep drinking whiskey. We can do that.
That's right. Yeah. I asked for Fawn's book for Christmas, so I'm excited.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. All right. Well, maybe we need to regroup in 6 months or next quarter and do a little, like, how'd we do?
Yeah. I love it.
Okay. All right. Let's do it. All right. Excellent.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Produced by Fedora J Productions.